Hello, it is Friday, November 15th, and this afternoon I'm making some sugar boards for my hives. This is about the time I like to do it. I don't want to do it too early. I find if I put the sugar shims on too early, the bees just pack the sugar out of the hive. So I like to wait until we start getting some pretty cool nights. We're only getting up, well, we've had a couple of warm days, but we're only getting up into the upper 40s during the day and down into the 20s at night. So now's a great time to do it, for me at least. And so I'll just show you real quick what I'm doing. There's no rocket science to this. It's sugar. But I'll show you how I do mine. So I'm just going to pour some sugar in here. I don't like to fill it the whole bucket. It's easier to mix with smaller quantities. And this is just apple cider vinegar, this is real apple cider vinegar, not the flavored apple cider vinegar. And I just put some. I don't measure. I don't think it's necessary. If you get too much, it's not a big deal. And I'm just going to mix it up. And that's pretty good. That's all I really need. It's gonna pack about like wet sand, and that's just perfect for what I'm doing. So, I have these shims that I've made, and some 1/2-inch hardware cloth. These are just stapled to the bottom of this one. Some of them I've actually made another rim around this, just to keep the wire from just resting on the top of the frames that are on the hive when I go to set this on. But honestly, it's really not a big deal. I really don't have any problem with it either way. So this is actually an old hive box that I just cut down. I wish I would have cut these a little bit taller, and I'll show you why here in a minute, but I wish these were just another 1/2 inch, maybe even 3/4 of an inch taller than this. But so I just have my shim, piece of newspaper, and I'm going to cut a corner out of this so that I've got a hole right in the middle. And I'm just going to lay that in there like that. I use a little cup just to cover the hole for a minute. And then I use my trusty measuring device, and I weigh out exactly 5 pounds. And I get it right every single time. Close enough, right? About like that. That's about 5 pounds of sugar. And I'm just going to pat this down, spread it out. Done. Now I do like to get rid of any newspaper that's sticking up. I don't suppose that's entirely necessary, but I do. And that's how I used to do them, and I'd done them that way for years and years and had great luck with it. Sometimes my bees will come up here and just go down on the sugar, and sometimes they won't touch it at all. And I'm okay either way. I do this as an insurance. I try to leave enough sugar on my hives to make sure that they're going to make it through winter, but winter around here is up and down and up and down. Some years it's really cold, some years it's not so cold. We just don't know till we get there. And what I found is I put these shims on the hive. When I came back in, I don't know, about end of January, first part of February, when we had a warm day, and I'll just pop the lid and just see if the bees are up here on the sugar. If they are, then I know they're hungry. If they're not, then I know they're okay. But what I noticed was this newspaper was just sopping wet. every year. And because it was so wet, and I used just water before to moisten the sugar would start to mold. So I've switched to apple cider vinegar because I don't get any mold now. And the bees don't seem to mind it. They consume the sugar just fine, and I don't think it hurts them. But I don't get any mold on my sugar now. The other thing I do is I've cut some 2-inch of this polystyrene insulation, and it fits right inside the shim. And this one is okay because of the way the hardware cloth stapled to the bottom of the rim, but most of my rims aren't quite that way. I'll show you what I've got. Most of my rims are too tall or too short, and the foam insulation sticks up above the rim. And I think that's going to be okay, but I really wish I had another 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch on these rims. As I start trading these out, as these start to fall apart, then the new ones I build will all be a little bit taller to accommodate this insulation. So when I put these on the hive, I'm putting them on the top, obviously, and I've switched my philosophy around a little bit. When I started keeping bees, I was taught you've got to have some sort of upper entrance for the bees, and you've got to have that upper entrance to vent off the warm, moist air that the bees are creating inside the hive. Well, that made sense to me, and that's the way I did it for years and years. And I had success with it, and I think you can do it that way. The more I've studied and looked around, I really believe that we can help the bees out a little bit more by closing off that upper entrance and giving them some upper insulation and help keep some of that warm, moist air inside the hive and not venting it off. Now, some will say, well, what about the condensation? With the insulation on the top, the condensation is going to happen, but it doesn't happen underneath the lid. It happens on the sidewalls, and the bees are just fine with that water on the sidewalls instead of on the underside of the lid. I did this with a number of hives last year, and interestingly enough, the newspaper around the sugar was dry as can be, dry as a bone. There was no condensation on that newspaper, and before it was, I'd get into the hive and they were just sopping wet. So I really do believe that having some insulation on top of the hive with no upper entrance is a benefit to the bees. I can't prove this. I know there's some other studies. Etienne Tardif has done lots and lots of research on it, and there's several other people that have done that research. I can tell you from last year, the bees that had these shims like this, they just looked better coming out of winter, and I don't think they consumed as much sugar or as much honey. I had honey left over in a number of my hives that I did this with. They didn't even touch the sugar. So I think by giving them that upper insulation, it keeps the draft out. They're able to manage the CO2 levels. I don't really worry about that. I do close down my entrance somewhat with an entrance reducer, but I did this last year, and I really think my bees looked better coming out of winter. So I'm going to do it again this year. Tomorrow I'll be taking all these shims out and putting them on my hives. I've got them just about all built. I've got all the ones for my 10 frame hives built, but I still need to fill some shims for some of the nooks that I have. And again, if they don't use it, I'm fine. If they do use it, great. It was there for them and they didn't starve to death. So I kind of look at 5 pounds of sugar as pretty cheap insurance for keeping that package of bees worth 150 bucks or more, I think that's pretty cheap insurance. Obviously, the best thing is to leave plenty of honey on the hives, which I really try to do, and I think my hives are pretty heavy this year. But our winters are just so unpredictable that I don't trust them. And so I do this. If nobody uses the sugar and I have all these shims left over, I'll just take the sugar, dump it in some hot boiling water, and I'll make syrup out of it. And it'll be great. So I don't think it's a waste. I don't think I'm going to lose anything. I don't feel like it's a waste at all. To me, it's just rather cheap insurance to make sure those hives don't starve out. So that's what I'm doing. Tomorrow I'll take you out and I'll show you how I put these on the hives and how I kind of finish wrapping up the hives for winter. It's Saturday and I'm out going to put all these shims on the hives and get them buttoned up for winter. This will be the last time I really touch them, probably until end of January, first part of February, and I'll just wait for a warm day. Today's been fairly nice. As you can see, mostly blue sky, but we have a storm coming in. It's relatively warm today, but we're going to be getting some storm here, and things just keep cooling off a little more and a little more and a little more. So winter's coming, but I think my bees are pretty well ready. I'm going to put these sugar shims on them, and I'm going to put some tar paper over the top of them. I realize the tar paper is not insulation, but if anything, it gives the beekeeper a little peace of mind that you've done everything you can. Other than that, that's probably all I'm going to do. I may go ahead and hit them with one more oxalic acid vaporization, just because this vaporizer is so quick and it's so easy to do, and now's a great time because they should really be broodless. And since today's a fairly nice day, it's a little bit warmer. I'm hoping the clusters aren't too tight and that the vapor's actually penetrating into the cluster. That's the hope. So I'm going to hurry and get this done as quick as I can. I'll show you what I'm doing. There's really not much to see, but I'll show you anyway. All right, here we go. All I'm going to do with these is pull my lid off, and because this is all sealed down, I don't really want to break this seal. So I'm gonna see if I can get one of these out. These are pretty snug. And this is just gonna sit here like this. So I need to cut a hole in the Reflectix. I just want to kind of make sure I get it in the center here. And I'm not sure the best way to do this, but I'm going to guess whether to do maybe a triangle or just a flap. I think what I'm going to do is just a flap here. Oops. If there's a better way to do this than that, I'd like to know. Now, I think they're still alive down in there. And this is going to go back in there. Nice and snug. I'm going to put the lid on top, and yes, it's going to have a gap here. I don't think it's going to matter too much just because of the way that insulation is. I just want to, got to make sure that my hole. As you can see, those fit rather snug. The hole that I cut in the center, maybe the best way to do this is a triangle. Just make sure this hole is over top of that so the bees can get up and into it. There we go. Put the lid back on. I don't know if these bees are going to chew on that insulation or not. They don't seem to mind the reflectix. Somebody's still alive in here. There. Okay. I've got all these hives pretty well. You can see I've disturbed them enough that they're kind of coming out to figure out what's going on. Okay, there's the first part. And here's the second part that I do. Right about there. Get that off. Now I'm just going to tack this down. With some staples. And pull it as tight as I can get it. And then the way I do the front, it's not going to cover the front all the way, and that's okay. Tuck the side in first. Tuck the top down. And then do the same to the back. Shooting blinks. And there we go. Again, I realize the tar paper's not insulation, but I think it keeps a little bit of the drafts out. I think it keeps some of the weather off the boxes and makes the beekeeper feel better. So I do it. I've not done it some years, and my bees have been okay, but I kind of like doing it, so I do it. And that's all I'm really going to do. Like I say, I'm going to come back and probably hit them with a oxalic acid vapor one last time, and these bees will be set for winter. So here goes the last round of OAV, at least for a while. Here we go. That's all I'm really doing today. Just hurry and put these sugar boards on and put a little tar paper around them and give them an OAV and go to the next yard. So I'm hoping I've got things under control as far as mites this year. It's been kind of crazy this fall. I've never had them mite counts as high as I've started with. I think I've got them knocked back down, and the hives are looking decent, so I'm optimistic that things are going to go well for the winter, and now it's just hope and pray. I hope your bees are ready for winter, because it's going to come. Whether we like it or not, it's here, and we just have to live with it, and that's okay. I will be at the North American Honeybee Expo in January. If you're coming, drop me a line, and if you run into me in Louisville, come tap my shoulder and say hello, and like to meet some of you. Appreciate you watching and appreciate you following along. I'm just a average beekeeper in Utah.